Hello there, and welcome to the tour of the Cerberus MammothTank, the 12th vehicle in my Armoured Fighting Hover Vehicle series of military vehicles. My name is Wimp, and I am the Chief Designer, Chief Builder, Chief Architect, and of course Chief Dumbass of the Mammoth Super Tank Update project. Now, as I said, this is an update, so there is an original vehicle to show you. And here is the old mammoth over here now. One of the things I sort of liked about this, and I sort of wish at the time I'd called it this, it reminds me of a sloth, the way it's sat, or at least a sphinx. Now, for those of you who don't or haven't noticed the naming convention of my Armoured Fighting Hover Vehicles, all of the tanks are named after dogs, and all of the non-tanks are named after cats. But the fact that this sort of looks a bit sphinx-ish kind of makes me think or wish it was the other way round, but still, never mind. So, this was built before the game was released, so before 1.0, and as a result it had no CPU, no cargo extensions and controllers, and no shields. There was also a whole bunch of other stuff. I can't always remember. I think some of the doors were different and they were different unlock. This was sort of the best I could do with the LCDs because we didn't have the... did I click on the right thing? Yes, I did. Because we didn't have any of the formatting. For example, pos equals 20. That should change the position of the next line. But on the screen, it just says pos equals 20. So that didn't work. So this was kind of, like I said, the best I could do. Now, the interior's changed. It's slightly bigger, but generally speaking, it's roughly the same. And these things are very similar. They're the same size and shape, except I have changed these two round-ish. Yeah, so if we have a look here, we've got a slope and a slope on the bottom, whereas on this one we've got half of the 2x1 slope, and then on top is a 2x1 slope that starts immediately, whereas on this one I've started at the top end of them. Yeah, okay. So, and the colour is obviously different. The interior's changed, and it, yeah, like I said, it is bigger. It is somehow, it is 3 blocks longer, and I'm not entirely sure how. I don't know whether it's because the front end has changed, because these are the same size. So if we go and have a look at the other things in a minute. Oh, I do need to talk about these as well, because I've named them. So slope 2 blocks, and then 4 lots of the large hover engines, a block, and then the 2x1 slope up, right? Same on this one. The front slope, 2 blocks, 4 hover engines, a block, and then a 2x1 slope up. Now, I know this is going to be slightly different because, as I said, on this one, it's a 2x1 slope starting right at that point, whereas this one it isn't. But these are the same blocks as those, so I don't know how it's become. And although the middle bit is bigger, as you can probably tell, the front end on the new one comes to here, it's all within these shapes. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so 3 blocks longer somehow. It's also 2 blocks wider and 2 blocks taller, because as you can probably tell, I've changed a bunch of this shaping up here. Now, this had a 2 artillery turret version, where this thing went wider. It was the entire width, and then there was 2 arty turrets side by side. That's what made this a mammoth tank. For those of you who don't know, the mammoth tank is from a game called, I'm sure you will, Command and Conquer. It's a super tank with 2 main guns, and that's why that was called a mammoth. Now, I did give a single artillery version just for those who were playing in the new, because that had just come in, the device limits. Whereas this one, the 2 main guns are actually here rather than the artillery turrets. I've given you 2 rail guns. Right, so now that we've got the old version out the way, let me talk you around this new updated Mammoth, starting with its role and its task equipment. Okay, so its role is a Mammoth tank, which is a 2 main gun super heavy tank. And to facilitate that role, it is large, very well armoured, or certainly in my Armoured Fighting Hover Vehicle series of vehicles, it's well armoured. And as I said, it has 2 main guns, two rail guns, that's it, I couldn't remember the name for a second. Right, so that's it, really. That's that's how it facilitates that role. Fairly simple. So the next segment then is its propulsion, handling, and lift capacity. Right then, propulsion, for its forward acceleration, it has 13 large tier 2 thrusters. As you can probably tell, it was only really supposed to have 4, and then it became 6, and then it became a hell of a lot more as the weight went up and up. But so there you can see them all there. It has 11 reverse and braking tier 2 large thrusters that you can see there and then back there. And then for its lateral thrust, it has 10 large tier 2 thrusters in these arm shapes. And you can also probably see that it has some RCSs to aid with its agility. It has 16 RCSs, 8 down each side, 4 in each of these things, which I will talk about in a second, and grouped in pairs. 16 in total. So, hover engines. All large hover engines. It has 8 on by default when you use the Propulsion etc. device group shortcut. Now, these 8 large hover engines will lift 200 tons in 3¼ G. And I calculated to 200 tons because the vehicle itself is 187. So that gives you a little bit extra for ammo to play with before you need to turn it on, or certainly 3G with a whole bunch of ammo would do. With max lift on, that'll turn on obviously all of the other hover engines, making it 16 of those in total. And in 4G, it will lift, with max lift on, 362.3 tons. So it'll definitely operate with a whole bunch of stuff in it in 4G. Right, mobility, starting with its maneuverability statistics I need to go to. For forward acceleration, 24 meters per second squared. For braking reverse, 20 meters per second squared. And for lateral thrust, 18 meters per second squared acceleration. For its agility, it has a yaw of 20 degrees per second. Now, less importantly, I think, is the roll at 15 and the pitch at 9 degrees per second. And handling, let's pop into the driver's seat. You get a view out the window. The window in this one is obviously a bit bigger. Now, all those large thrusters, it is still sluggish, but considering its size and weight, I think we can forgive it, or I certainly can. Where's the old one? There it is. I didn't want to crash into it and embarrass myself. Oh dear, I crashed into it and embarrassed myself. Okay, right. So there you go, that's sort of how it handles. That's the end of that segment then. So the next segment is its power, fuel, and air. Okie dokie, so I'll show you where those are in a bit, but when we get to the interior layout, but I will tell you what it's got for now. It has 6 large generators fed by 12 large fuel tanks. It has a pentaxid tank, so I'm sure you can guess it has a shield. It also has 8 O2 tanks that feed 6 ventilators and an O2 station. For compartmentalization, it is compartmentalized. It has 3 compartments. The cockpit at the front, it has a mid compartment and a rear compartment. Oh, and as I usually do, I will prove real quick that it is airtight by pressing the correct button this time and turning on the blue shapes. As you can see, it is in fact airtight. I don't know why I prove it. I mean, you can take my word for it or not, I suppose. But there you go. You don't have to take my word now. You've seen the blue things. Right, that's the end of that segment. So the next segment then is its weapons, defenses, and construction. Right, weapon-wise, for its turrets, it has an artillery turret as its tank turret. That's what I refer to artillery turrets as in HVs, is tank turrets. I meant to go there. And that will target the weapons of bases and HVs. The plasma turrets that I refer to as heavy turrets will target the same weapons of bases and HVs. It also has the maximum allowed... Oh, I should say there is the maximum allowed of the plasma turrets. There's 4, 2 on the front and 1 on each of the rear things. Oh, before I forget, I will tell you about these things. So I know what they are. My brain knows what they are. It recognizes them as things that are part of a tank. But despite a fair amount of research on Google, I cannot find what they are called IRL. I mean, they're not side skirts because, I mean, it's not a thin bit of metal that's protecting a track. So I had to come up with my own name. Now, if anyone knows what they're actually, if there is actually a name in the military that you would call these kind of structures, then do please let me know, because I would like to know. I'm not exactly happy with the name I've chosen. So I've chosen the name Outrigs for these things. Now, an outrigger is a type of water vessel, small kind of boat thing, 1-2 people, that has kind of pontoon things on the side, kind of far out from the main hull, that helps keep it buoyant. Well, no, it helps keep it stable, helps it stop from tipping over. Now, the name Outrig doesn't technically really fit, but then it was kind of the best, and I thought, why not? So one of the other options would have been nacelles. Now, those of you who are familiar with Star Trek will know that Starfleet vessel, well, in fact, most vessels in Star Trek have a warp nacelle that creates the warp field that the ship then uses to go faster than light. Now, if you know what the word nacelle means, it actually just means the covering around a airplane engine. It's not even really the engine itself, it's the cover around it. So, I mean, even then, the nacelles in Star Trek, the word nacelle, I'm not sure it actually quite fits, but someone decided, well, we need a name for these cylinder things, let's use that, and it's become stuck. So that's what I've decided. I've decided that's my job on my vehicle, is to come up with a name, even if it doesn't apply, and just say, well, it fucking does now. Right, so there you go. The Outrigs, I've called them. Obviously, it has 4, 2 on each seat. Oh my god, 2 on each side. I'm going to have to slow down my speech, and then I might get my words out. So 2 on each side. Obviously 2 at the front and 2 at the back. Now, there are weapons on these Outrigs, and that's why I decided to talk about it there. So, like I said, 2 of the plasmas, 1 on the rear ones each. There is also the maximum allowed of Gatling turrets, that's 6, and they are set to anti-personnel, so they will target predators and infantry, ground troops, and also drones, which is fine, I think. As you can see, there's some on the side, whereas the original, I've deleted now, didn't. And also 4 rocket turrets, which are set to anti-air configuration, so they will target the weapons of SVs. Now, I have on this one set them to target the drones as well. obviously, if it's wasting too much ammo shooting at ground troops, do feel free to turn this little selection off. But I thought it would be nice to have them shoot at drones as well. So that's all of the turrets. The fixed weaponry then, like I've said multiple times now, 2 railguns on top, which is only half the maximum allowed. Shall I go around the other side where it's actually sunny? It also has the maximum allowed pulse lasers. That's 4, 2 on each side, 2 there and there. And it has very nearly the maximum allowed Gatling guns, which I've plopped on the front there. You can have 6 and there's only 5, and that's because, you know, I wanted them to be symmetric. So there you go. So therefore, obviously shooting other ground troops, especially if your Gat turrets are being dopey, or maybe they just don't have the barrel depression to get them, you can flick those on and kill them manually. And of course there's 5, so it'll make short work of anything, I expect. So that's the end of the weaponry. For its defenses, as I said, it has a pentaxi tank, so it does have a shield, and it's quite well armoured. Now, as with most of the tanks other than the light, the armour profile for the tanks is the other way round to the non-tanks, where they have mostly hardened steel with some combat steel armour. This is the other way round. It's all combat steel, except some hardened steel armour. Now, the hardened steel armour is not visible on the front, really. I mean, there's little bits like this that is hardened steel. And then I think this stuff is as well. Yeah, but these are combat. That's hardened steel as well, I believe. Shall we do that and see? Yeah, there you go. From hull to combat steel. And then some of the detail is just steel, because it's just decorative. There's a couple of blocks in front of the turrets and around the turrets that are combat steel. Now, as for the other armour, there is a whole bunch... siren. Okay, the policeman's has gone. So it's got a whole bunch of interior armour, and almost all of that is hardened steel. Now, some of it is just steel in order to save weight. Oh, and I have used what is referred to as lag shot, where you do a sloped block so that if any shots lag into the armor, rather than just carrying on until they get to an important component, they carry on until they get to this air gap here, and then they'll hit this block, just in case you don't know. But yeah, most of the internal armor is lag shot, and most of it is in fact, all of it is either hardened steel or steel. There is no other option. And like I said, there's quite a lot of it. Maybe not quite as much as I thought, so or as I would have wanted. I put those there because there wasn't really anywhere else to go, so that's why this shape is here, just to give it more protection for your O2. So, and, you know, things like this. Oh, there you go, that's carbon composite. There's a few bits inside that I believe are, plastic. So, yeah, decorative on the outside is steel, unless it's protecting something, and then it's hardened steel. And on the inside, it's plastic, unless it's protecting something, and then it's steel, basically. Oh, and I always forget, the windows are the heavy windows. I think that's what they call them, the armoured windows. I can't remember now, but either way, there's only 2 on HVs, and it's the heaviest of them. Right, that's the end of that segment. So the next segment then is its resource gathering, production and storage. Well, resource gathering, it has none. You may have noticed the original Mammoth had a harvester module on the front, but as with all of the updated AFHVs, I've taken all of those off because, as I say in all of the tours, I think it's nice not to have a harvester module on a tank, because then it gives the roll back to the actual tree cutters and the lawn mowers, Why would you need one of those if your tank can do it? So I take them off. And I mean, these things are certainly heavy enough just to knock down trees, and it's combat steel, so it's not going to take a whole lot of damage. Production, that's next. There is one constructor on board, just the one, but I wanted to give you something in case you got blowed up and stuck. You know, if you managed to defeat whatever killed your vehicle and pop a core back in, I wanted to give you something to rebuild with. And obviously make ammo and stuff. And then storage. This is where it gets a bit complicated. It has hang on. It has an 8,000 SU ammo container in the back. I'll show you that in a bit. It has two 3,000 SU ammo containers in the front. It has a 2,000 cargo container in the front and an 1,844 SU cargo container in the back. It also has two mini fridges, two armor lockers, and a whole bunch of cargo boxes. Some large and some small. There's so many that it's not really any point listing them all, really. I mean, they are in the description, but just in this, meh. Right, that's the end of that segment. The next one then is its interior layout and any remaining devices. Okay, parked it on the floor. I'm going to turn off my headlight and God mode so that we get a decent experience of walking around it. It is on a slight wonk, I do apologise. Shall I move it? Yeah. BRB! Okay, there we go. That looks a bit better. Okay, so the only entrance in is through the back door. Now, what's going on? Oh, I turned shield on, not signals. Haha, dumbass. See, I'm not lying in the intro when I say Chief Dumbass. Okay. Now? Now. There we go. So the ramp and the lights are on that motion sensor, but this door is manual. I always forget to explain why I do that. It's because I don't want it opening while you're walking around in here. And then, you know, some rocket Xerax fires a rocket in here, you die and it blows up the core or something important, you know? Just because the door opened on a motion sensor. So that's why I do that, especially on the tanks. There are some exceptions, but it depends on the angle and what, you know, the role is supposed to be. Anyway, right, so we walk in. There's the 8,000 ammo container in the ceiling there. Sorry, I didn't leave that open for long enough. Then we have the 1,844 cargo container there. Now the extensions for that are in the ceiling, and the extensions for that are above this stuff here. As you can see, we have the single O2 station in front of the door with a cargo box, a small one. That little red light there indicates, I mean, I'm sure you can guess, especially considering all the other doors are glass, but this is an outer door, so that little red light indicates that this is an outer door. Right, so both left and right, we have access to one of the power generators on each side. There are 3 on each side. Let me God mode in. There's the one we were just looking at. There's another one, and then there's a one above it as well. Do bear in mind that although there is some Lagsha armor here, and it is hardened steel with combat steel on the outside, that is slightly vulnerable. Then you'll see the kind of yellowy shutters. Those are the fuel tanks. Now there are 8 accessible, 4 on each side. But there is also another 4 in the ceiling here, above the container extensions for that container. There. As you can see, a clone chamber on one side, a healing station on the other, followed by an armor locker and a large cargo box that are mirror imaged on both sides. Anything else I need to mention? No, not really. Those orange lights just indicate this is sort of an engineering maintenance area. But I've given you white lights as well because I didn't want it to be completely orange. Right, so moving from the rear compartment into the middle compartment then, we have this area that has the shield generator there. With the pentaxid tank on one side and a large cargo box on the other for more pentaxid. The core is there. We also have a few small cargo boxes for storing other bits and bobs in, like, for example, more O2 to go in the O2 tanks there. And as you can see, the Tier 4 CPU extenders are in this little room as well. Right, moving forwards, we have the cockpit. Not sure that really is the correct term for a tank, but stuff it, it'll do. On the back, we have the production area with the constructor there. And that is the 2000 SU cargo container. I didn't tell the constructor to input into it and output out of it and stuff. Never mind. I'm sure people can figure that out. I'm not sure it's worth re-uploading to the workshop over that. Do you know what? Did I even do these? Yes, I did. Okay, so there's the two mini fridges. The only two fridges on the vehicle are there and there. I put it next to the constructor just in case you need to take stuff in and out from between them. There are 4, what did I call them? Barrels? Drums. 4 sort of ammo drums on the ceiling. In front of those, on one side is the detector, and on the other side is a lever that turns these lights, or leaves them on when you've got into the seat. Oh, I haven't been showing you the motion sensors. Right. That motion sensor there controls that door. That motion sensor there controls that door. These doors are therefore not manual. They're automatic. Did I show you the Wi-Fi? That's there. And then the motion sensors for these doors are there and there. And the motion sensor for the lights in here is there. Oh, and in here, the motion sensor is... God, I can never remember where I'm putting this stuff. Oh, so the... I know where it is. There it is. Of course, the reason I struggle to remember this stuff is iteration. As I'm building it, I might put a sensor one place, then decide it needs to go somewhere else, then change my mind again and put it in a third place, which is why you see me struggling, by the way. Yeah, I'm sure you get it, but just in case you think I'm just a dumbass. I mean, I am, but not just a dumbass. Anyway, right, back into the cockpit then. So, as you can see, the sides are flanked by the 3000 SU ammo containers. I didn't want you to lose lots of ammo if you took damage, like, for example, on that side of the vehicle, which is why it's all sort of spread out around the vehicle. We have 5 seats. This one is supposed to be for the vehicle commander, and the vehicle commander gets a... That's broke. Can I fix it with that? Yes, I can. There we go. Oh, and that one's broke as well, isn't it? There we go. For some reason, it's something to do with the spawning in, I think. Yeah. Right, so he gets a comm panel, a keyboard, and a couple of keypads. As you can see, there's a couple of small cargo boxes in here as well. This seat is supposed to be for the tank turret gunner. Oh, and I'm going to get to that in a bit. Then moving forward, obviously, we have the driver's seat here, flanked by 2 more gunners. I believe this one is the anti-air. Shall I look? Yeah, it's the anti-air turret gunner. And then this one is the heavy turret gunner. Now, we'll get to the signals in a bit, but when you turn on the various weapon groups, they get little like heads-up displays, gunning control things. I will show you those in a bit. But the driver, of course, as usual with my vehicles, gets 2 holo displays that show you what the toggleable shortcuts are. And that moves us on to the shortcuts and signals segment. Right then. As usual, the first device group shortcut is propulsion, etc. Now, this one will turn on all of the thrusters and what I referred to earlier as the default hover engines. Do please use this one instead of the thruster switch down in the general shortcuts bit, because this will not turn on and off the hover engines, and I like to have the hover engines turn on and off to save power, obviously. The next one down is max lift, so that will turn on the other hover engines. Now, I did tell you what the lift capacity is with max lift on earlier, but I've also popped it on the screen. Oh, in case this isn't the first tour of mine you've seen, you may notice that these are a different color. I used to do them in gray because everything else in here was gray, but then when I started to do these screens in the kind of sandy brown, I can't be bothered finding it anywhere. I thought it would be nice to do these ones in that color as well. Of course, you may know this comes with several colors that you can switch between, which is another reason why I like to have these gray, because the primary color of the vehicle isn't always going to be the sand if you change it. So I thought I'd give it gray because then it goes with everything. Right. Blah, blah, yakety yak, always with the talking. Right, so the next two down are headlights and tail lights. Turn God mode back on and go and have a look. So it's got 6 headlights, 2 on the front of the forward outrigs, and then 2 on the front of the cockpit. Now, the outboard, most of these are set to a wider angle than the others. They're set to 110, whereas all the rest are set to only 70 to give you a better, wider field of light. And the tail lights, of course, I have my patented red flares on the back. And I've given you a switch to turn them off if you don't like them. Of course, if you hate them, you can multi-tool them away. And the next switch down, which is the last one of the device group shortcuts. Oh, I should also say that my devices are grouped in custom groups. I have not used the auto group. And some of these rely on these custom groups, so please don't click that. It has been pointed out to me by someone who reviewed one of my vehicles that you can click the save template. Obviously, I'm sure it's habit for people to do that as soon as you spawn stuff in. But if you do accidentally click the auto group, apparently you can take this to a repair pad and repair to template, and it will fix those device groups. So, next one down, ventilators. Just in case this is the first tour of mine you've seen, I will cover this real quick. If you look at the power left and you turn the oxygen off, the power left doesn't change, because although the oxygen sucks in, the ventilators suck in all the oxygen and don't refill the vehicle, they're not actually off. So I give you a switch to turn the ventilators off, and you'll notice that the power left does change. So if you're in a breathable atmosphere, you can save a bit more power. That was a week ago, thank you. Right then, on to the custom signals shortcuts then. And the first one, as usual, is power save. Now, like the last one, this sort of does the same, just more of it. So power save on this vehicle will turn off all of the motion sensors that does the ramps and the lights and the doors. So everything will become manual with that off. It'll also turn off the switch there. It'll turn off all of the passenger seats to save power. And it'll turn off the wireless connection. Oh, and it'll turn off the top 2 generators. Now, on some of the AFHVs earlier in the series, I included more of the generators on the power save switch. Now, as far as I know, it doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't really save any power. I think the way the game works is that you only use up the fuel that you need to generate the power, regardless of how many generators are on. But I sort of do it for a bit of you know, RP sort of lore. But I've done that in here as well. Now, the reason I haven't done them all, as I've said in other AFHVs that have shields, I don't want you accidentally turning the power save on while your shields are charging, and then one generator is trying to power your shield as it's charging up, and then everything goes pop. Didn't want that to happen. I think that's it. Yeah, I believe so. So the fridges aren't on the power save. They are manual. They come turned off by default. I did go into them earlier to see. I think it's nice to keep them off until you've actually got sandwiches in there that need to be kept cold. And I don't want you, again, accidentally turning them off with the power save and then ruining all your food. So the next shortcut down, signal shortcut. In fact, the next whole bunch are the turrets and the weapons. So the tank turret obviously does this one, the artillery turret. The heavy turrets, as I pointed out earlier, will do the plasmas. The anti-air turrets will do the rocket turrets. And the anti-personnel turrets will do the Gatling turrets. I have mentioned in other videos, but just in case you're wondering and you haven't seen those, I refer to these as Gatling turrets instead of minigun turrets because, as far as I know, minigun is a brand of rotary barrel weapon, whereas Gatling is a umbrella term for any rotary barrel, which is why these aren't actually miniguns unless they're made by... Oh, I mentioned in a previous video I thought it was General Electric that made them, and then I checked afterwards and I was right. Hooray for me. So yeah, these aren't made by General Electric. I mean, unless in the lore of the game, General Electric are still around and they do manufacture these, in which case that would be fine to call them minigun turrets, but I haven't seen anywhere where it says that. Anyway, too much talking, not enough touring. So, heavy fixed weapons. You may have noticed in the screenshots that the two railguns on top have little laser beam sight things. Now, I'm sure those of you... I'm sure some of you will know exactly what's going on there. They are LCDs. The projectors are in here, there and there. And they're just lines on the LCD projector that come out to here to help you aim. The heavy fixed weapons will also include the pulse lasers for helping you take down any shields. Next one down is loud, the fixed Gatling guns. I'm not going to flick it because more loud, but they're obviously those. And then the last one is closed door. Now, as I was telling you earlier on, this is manual so that it doesn't open accidentally as you walk past it and something goes wrong in here. But if you accidentally leave it open and then you walk all the way through the vehicle and get in the driver's seat, I wanted to give you a way to close that door where you didn't need to walk all the way back through the vehicle again. So if you... Oh, God. That one, and 9. If you flick that... Oh, it's not 9. They go up to 8, don't they? So if you flick that switch, it will close the door, and it will only close it. It won't open it again. It might be better to show you. So yeah, it'll only close it, won't open it. Right, that's the end of the shortcuts and signal segment. So the next and last segment is its CPU and upgrading. This is going to be fairly quick. CPU is 96,000 out of the total 100,000 you are allowed. Most of that is RCSs and armor and stuff and weapons, obviously. Now, just in case you're skipping around in the video, the core is here in the middle compartment, as well as the CPU extenders are near the floor there. As far as upgrading, though, there isn't an inbuilt upgrade path. Now, that doesn't mean you can't personalize it. For example, there's 5 seats in here. If you're using this in single player, you obviously don't need them. I forgot to show you the holo displays. yeah, you probably aren't going to need all the seats. So, I mean, you're more than welcome to tear these out and leave just the driver's seat and do other stuff in here. Of course, that's fine. Even if it wasn't, I couldn't stop you because I wouldn't know about it, but it is fine. But I don't consider that to be upgrading. Like I said, I consider that personalization. Now, let me just flick on the weapons again. Yeah, just those three. So there we go. We have a heads-up display for the tank turret gunner, who gets a slightly... You might not be able to see it very well. Let's sit in the seat. No, the one in front kind of ruins it. But it has a slightly different crosshair than the other ones because of the turret type. This one is the anti-air turret, so as you can see, has a different crosshair. And then this one over here is the heavy turrets, different crosshair. That's what I forgot to show you earlier. Aye, right. Now, before I let you go, I do want to quickly talk about its paints. Have I paused time? Oh, yeah, I went for a drive, didn't I? I was wondering why the sun was, or the star was at a different angle. Right. The paint palette comes with several colours for the vehicle, just in case this is the first AFHV of mine you've seen. So the vehicle itself comes in the desert sand, which is that colour there. But it also has this military green. Ooh, army. It also has this Arctic white. Ooh, snowy. And it has this dark grey. Ooh, grey. Which unfortunately is very similar to other greys in the build, but I'm not all that fussed. So it's very similar to like the floor colour and that colour. Oh, in fact, I can show you in here. So it is quite similar to these. You might be able to tell it is ever so slightly blue, and I can prove it, 41, as opposed to 40s and 40s. But yeah, you can see there is a bit of a difference. And yeah, I think it looks quite good in that grey. But so there you go. Those are the colours that you can swap it to that come in the palette. Obviously, you can configure these colours to anything you want to change what the primary colour is. I wouldn't recommend changing anything else because it's used elsewhere in the builds and stuff. But there we go. Oh, and something else I want to mention, but I always forget it. So this texture that I use here is what I call the damage texture. And as you lose blocks, it looks like you've taken damage. It sort of looks like it's smouldering. Yeah. See, to me, that looks damaged. Whereas a vehicle where nothing is painted on the inside, it just doesn't. So that's why I do that. I thought I would mention it in at least one video in case anyone was wondering. Right, so there we go. That'll be the end of the tour of the Cerberus MammothTank. Oh shit, I need to do the outro. I need a new vehicle now. So thank you very much for taking an interest in the Cerberus MammothTank. I hope you got some use, or hope you get some use out of it. And hopefully I will see you in another video for a different build. So thank you again, and goodbye.